Hi, and welcome to the Modern Persian Food Podcast. We are food bloggers,
Bita Arabian,
and Bita Nazim Kelly, and we're here to share with you the rich flavors and fresh ingredients of Persian cooking and how to incorporate them into today's modern lifestyles.
We're excited to introduce you to the flavors, tastes, and techniques we use, and also our own cultural stories and perspectives growing up in the U.S. in a Persian family. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to episode 75. Today we're going to be talking about Norooz and the welcoming of the spring season. We are so excited to chat about the meaning of Norooz, giving a full overview, and to share what our personal Haft Seen tables will look like. We want to encourage you to set up a Haft Seen of your own in whatever shape or form that may look like. And today I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Bita June. Hi, Bita.
Hi, Bita June. Happy early Nowruz to you.
Thank you, Eid Shama Mubarak.
Eid Shama Mubarak. Thank you so much. Nowruz means new day, essentially. And as Persians, we really embrace the turning of the season, the first day of spring, and recognize that as the Persian New Year. And we are super excited to talk about it today. I just want to preface that we're going to kind of give like an overview of what Norooz is here. If you want a little bit more information, we did a 3-part series last year that we talk about the prelude to Persian New Year, some of the elements of the Haft Seen, the foods that are typically eaten, and also about like Sezdeh Bedar in a 3-part series that we did last year. So if you want a little bit more information than what we're going to talk about today, please check out those episodes. Those are full of great content that you can learn more about this holiday. But in summary, I'll give you guys kind of like a overview of what Norooz is for people who don't know or just need a little bit of a refresher. Norooz, the Persian New Year, is celebrated for 13 days. It starts from the very moment of the Spring Equinox and continues celebration and paying respects to elders for 13 days. So before Norooz, what people do is really just get ready for New Year's. And so they do a form of spring cleaning their homes and taking care of themselves and getting ready to embrace the change of the season and all of the good things that are coming with the rebirth of the season and also the energy and spirit of the new year coming. One tradition that takes place is something called Charshanbe Suri, and it happens on the eve of the last Wednesday of the year. This is a ceremony that a lot of Persians participate in. It comes from the Zoroastrian culture, and what it is you basically jump over little bonfires, as simple as little candles that you want to just jump over. I've done that several years when I've lived in an apartment in San Francisco or in New York, and basically we weren't able to actually build little bonfires. We didn't have a yard or anything, so we've set up little clusters of candles that we've jumped over. And when you do that, you do this little chant. It's a ritual to get rid of any unhealthiness in your body before the end of the new year and embrace the energy and the light of the fire to start off the new year on the right foot, essentially. So we start celebrating the Persian New Year before New Year even begins. And then once the actual New Year's actually comes, we gather around a place setting. We've talked about place setting several times in this podcast, but what we do is the Sofreh Haft Seen. And the Sofreh of the 7 S's is basically a setting that we gather around and bring in the new year. And on that, there's many different elements. Over the next 13 days, the youngers go pay respects to the elders, and the elders in return give them gifts or money. Again, more on that in last year's episodes if you want to get a little bit more information on that. But it's an opportunity for everyone to see each other. And once you kind of go see each other, then they can come back and see you again. So sometimes you're seeing people you maybe have not seen in a long time. We're coming out of the coldness of winter and now coming out in spring and growing. And it's a great opportunity to kind of see everybody and connect with people that maybe you haven't been able to connect with. So you do that. And then on the 13th day, what you basically do is go have this big picnic outside. You have to get out of the house. Sezdeh Bedar. Sezdeh means 13. Bedar. So get out of the house on the 13th is essentially the tenets of this part of the celebration, is where you go and you have a picnic and you gather, and there's lots of big parks that a lot of Persians will gather at, and like a fun party outside, and you bring picnic food and you can bring food to share. A lot of times there'll be like food trucks or something, some people selling food, and you really just have like a great event outside with people people in your community, and rounds out the end of this almost 2-week time period where you've kind of embraced the new year. You've grown your Sezdeh. A few weeks ago, we had Nazavarian from Bottom of the Pot on the show, walking us through how to actually make our own Sezdeh as one of the pillars of the table of the Sofreh Haft Seen. That is Persian Norooz. You may notice that Norooz is sometimes spelled differently, and that's just because of the translation. It is basically the beginning of the new year, and that's how we celebrate kind of really the biggest holiday in the Persian culture.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Bita June. I mean, Nowruz is huge. It's probably our biggest holiday, most looked forward to. And again, it's non-secular. It's attached to the seasons and the changing of the seasons. It's a happy time of renewal and refreshing. So I really appreciate you going over that. And again, if you want to dive into our specific overview of kind of the before and the during and the after Nowruz, we have a 3-part series, episode 22, 23, and 24 to go back and listen to. I think the ultimate purpose of our sharing today is to encourage you that you can do this, but you don't have to do it in its entirety. So yeah, the 7 symbolic things that start with the Farsi letter Seen. 7 things that start with the S sound in Farsi. They don't have to be the actual things. I've seen some really creative ways of representing and setting a Haft Seen with images of what these 7 things are. I've seen them etched or painted onto hollowed out eggs. And my sister-in-law has wooden eggs that she puts out each year in a very easy way. And each of the eggs have one of these items. So, but if you do want to go for it, some of the things are pretty easy to find. For example, Seeb. That's Farsi for apple. And apple represents health. So I always try to look for a big, juicy red apple for my Haft Seen. Another one that I try to have is seer. Seer is Farsi for garlic. Sometimes if I want to get fancy, I will spray paint it gold or put a little gold glitter on it. But the garlic represents health and good health that we all want to promote and have into the new year. Another thing that some people like to have is sonbol, which is a really fragrant, beautifully scented flower. In English, the hyacinth flower. It's the ones with the tiny little fragrant flowers and kind of the longer stems. And they're often in a pot. You can buy them in a pot. Serket is one that I usually have in the pantry, so I put that out. And serket is Farsi for vinegar. Serket represents patience, aging. Another one is Sezdeh. Now, Sezdeh is Farsi for kind of the Persian grass that we talked about in depth with our lovely special guest in episode 73. Naz Davarian walks us through step-by-step growing Sezdeh. Now, if you don't have the time or energy to do that, you could pick up some wheatgrass. Persian markets often have some available that have been grown already. I've even used catnip or catgrass on my Haft Seen in times of desperation.
And last year, didn't you also use chia seeds for a last-minute Sezdeh growth?
I did. Last year, I grew Sezdeh from chia seeds, and let me tell you, it was easy, and they turned out so nicely. I'm doing it again this year. I find that to be easier and fun. There's 2 things that are traditionally on a Haft Seen table that are not that easy to necessarily find, a couple of unique items. One is senjed, and that's the dried jujube. It represents love, and my mom usually just picks up extra and gives me some of those. So that's how I do that, or I'll put them in the freezer and try to save them for a whole year. And the other one is samanu, and that's like a samanu. Some people make it homemade. I think it's like a wheat pudding. So we have a relative that makes it and shares it, which is nice. There's different representations to what these things mean, given that this is a holiday that's been celebrated for over 3,000 years. But I have heard that Samanu represents patience, power, and bravery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and going back to Sezdeh, that represents growth and renewal.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. And you could really see that as like the shoots growing.
Blooming and growing. Yeah. But there's some flexibility here. So there are actually more than 7. So you can pick and choose. Another one is seke. That's Farsi for coin. So a lot of people put some kind of golden coin. Sometimes I'll get the little chocolates wrapped in gold tin foil. Sometimes I'll throw some pennies in there, some shiny pennies.
For sure.
And that represents prosperity. Other people will include shirni, which is not, I guess, technically seen, but sometimes I'll say, okay, shirni is close enough to the seen sound, and the shirni is Farsi for sweets. I love your half seen and your very sweet way of setting your half seen. Can you tell us about what yours looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all the symbols and the meanings behind all of the elements of the half seen table. You know, as you mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility. There isn't like someone's not going to say, oh, your half seen is wrong because you don't have this one thing on it. It's not like that. And if you have people like that in your lives, you know, I encourage you to focus on the positive. And I think that our ultimate goal, as Bita was mentioning, was to really enable you as our listener to set out your own half seen and for us to give you the resources and the tools that you need to be able to do that confidently. And we love that. So we're just trying to spread the love about Norooz and about Persian food and culture. And we appreciate everyone listening in and joining us on this journey. But yeah, when it comes to the half seen, I love setting out a half seen. The half seen can just take so many different forms, and there could be so many different approaches to setting out a half seen. There's some people have really elaborate, like whole tabletop, like the whole dining table is the half seen, where they really showcase everything and have really beautiful platters and vessels to display all the different elements. So you can do something as grand as like having your whole dining table be like that, or you can take a little bit more of a simpler approach. So, you know, city living doesn't always allow for a lot of space. And my half seen actually takes different forms at various parts of the whole 13-day Norooz season. Last year's half seen, it did start off on the coffee table as a bigger element. And, you know, we were able to like kind of gather around the coffee table and it was all set up. Because if you do want to have it sticking around for, you know, all 13 days, it's a little bit hard to just keep it all in like one big area, you know. So then typically my half seen kind of gets a little bit more compact. And so when I have my intention of setting out my half seen, I usually start out with my mirror, my ayne. And usually on these settings, there's usually a mirror. So when we talk about like the Sofreh Haft, also there is a mirror. In the Sofreh Mehregan, we have a mirror. So my Sofreh Haft Seen starts with a mirror, and it's a special mirror to me that I had at my wedding that I had bought when I lived in New York many years ago. It's a very special mirror to me. So that's really the anchor of my Sofreh Haft Seen. And I will typically have some sort of beautiful fabric as the tablecloth and what is set it on. And a lot of times I will actually end up using some sort of tray or some sort of vessel where I can move it if I need to, or I contain the half seen for me. But I always start without the mirror, and then what kind of like landing basically environment does it have? Is it on a tray? Is it on this beautiful fabric? Sometimes if you have like an old terme or old like classical fabric, it's really beautiful to kind of incorporate that. And then of course candles. You need to have candles on your half seen. And if you have a matching candelabra with your mirror, even better. And if not, just like even little like tea candles is great. And then the other big thing is really, what do I want to showcase all these elements on? So a lot of times you will see that people will have like matching bowls or different plates or something that you can actually put these things on. So one of them you put your seke, the little coins. One of them you put the vinegar or the apple, and you kind of like make a little display on these little like bowls or plates that kind of like all go together as a theme that you may have or the approach of doing it. I always love having flowers. If you have symbolic, the hyacinth, great. Not only does that bring beautiful color to the table, but it also like has such a beautiful aroma. Even when you get close to the Haft Seen, you can smell the beautiful hyacinth. But if I don't have hyacinth, then whatever flowers that I think are pretty and seasonal, I will definitely have flowers on there. Some of the things that aren't part of the 7 S's, the shirini, there is some sort of sweets that you have. The other thing is like a goldfish. So a lot of times I've had like real live goldfish on the sofreh in a bowl. You have a little like fish bowl and you have like a little fish swimming in there. We kind of talked about it a little bit when we had Varta on the show, and she talked about how she's making these fish-shaped nabat candies, saffron flavored, that she's been putting on her Sofreh Haft Seen and also selling. So that's like a really great alternative. I've used like little gummy goldfish.
Yeah, I love Varta's fish-shaped hard candies as well as your gummy fish idea, because it also kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because you've got shirni and you've got your goldfish.
Perfect. And in addition to that, I have a really beautiful copy of the Shahnameh that was gifted to me that is really beautiful, has a beautiful case, and it has all these hand-drawn illustrations in it that is like super beautiful. I love having that there. I also have a holy book that we have fresh, crisp bills of money. What you do is when the actual Sol Tavil happens, when essentially the dropping of the ball, when the exact moment of the spring equinox is, then you have your holy book and you have money in it, and then you kind of distribute that. The olders give it to the youngers, and that's their AD. And I talked last year about how growing up, we would always like love to have our little envelopes and see how much money we can get by the end of the day, going and paying respects to all the older people in our community. And so a Haft Seen in my house kind of moves. It goes from a very central location, and then I kind of like make it a little bit smaller and smaller and move it to other locations in the house so it can sit there undisturbed and it doesn't have to like kind of be in the way. But that's basically how I approach setting up my Haft Seen.
Yes, I love your Haft Seen when it gets portable. I just find it so clever. It's like a portable Haft Seen. And did you say to me that once that you took it to your mom's house or needed to take it somewhere?
It was actually a few years ago. My father has passed away, and a traditional way of mourning is that the first Norooz after someone passes away, you don't actually set out a Haft Seen. Or, I don't know how exactly traditional it was, or maybe it just wasn't something that my mom wanted to do without my dad there. And so I actually built her a little Haft Seen on a tray, and I took it to her house for New Year's, and we actually gathered around that. And that was like a really like kind of special way. And to that point, there's pictures sometimes on people's Haft Seens of people who have passed away or are not there, or if you don't have any family around you. It's always really beautiful to have a picture of your family or of someone who like, that you respect and that you love, to have the pictures there too, just to remember them at that special time.
That's right. Also have a little commemoration. Absolutely. So one little thing we forgot to mention that is often on there is actually decorated eggs. Colored or decorated eggs. I have a fun way to do it if you have young kids and nail polish around. It's actually marbleizing eggs using nail polishes and water. But any kind of colored egg or any type of egg representation is also often seen on a Haft Seen table to represent, again, rebirth, fertility. And there's some crossovers. It is non-secular, but I do see crossovers with other Western holidays, such as Easter, having the Easter grass and Easter eggs. We have our own version of sort of Norooz eggs, often seen on a Haft Seen table.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Hopefully that this gives some inspiration to people to actually set up their own Haft Seen. Really, you just need a little designated area that you're going to be doing it, and set out basically whatever you have. You can just set it up, take a picture, and send it to us. And we want to reshare as many Norooz pictures and Haft Seen pictures that we can this year. So please send us and tag us on your pictures. And we really encourage you, if you haven't already, start embracing Norooz and setting out your own Haft Seen and really enjoying the spring season.
I love that. Great idea.
Yeah, and with that, let's go ahead and jump into the Acid Beats to round out the episode. Today's Acid Beats comes from Manije from Germany. And she asks, Beatas, what are you going to eat for Norooz this year?
Yeah.
Some of the typical foods that when you think about Norooz is like sabzi polo mahi. Sabzi polo is like a herbed rice served with fish, a lot of times smoked fish, a lot of times just saffron roasted salmon in the oven. Ash rishte is a famous dish with the long noodles. We have an episode just on ash rishte because it's one of my favorites. And I actually love having ash rishte for New Year's January 1st. And also it's traditional for Persian New Year. But Bita, what are you going to have for New Year's this year?
Oh, yeah. So typically we go to my in-laws and my mother-in-law, Mabanjala, who we actually had on a Flour Goal episode.
Oh, MJ.
MJ for sure. Mabanjala. She's a wonderful entertainer, and she does prepare the traditional things. The smoked fish, the herb rice. She makes kuku. And sometimes ash, or other times we'll have the ash and save it for the 13th day picnic. Yeah. But, during the pandemic last year, she did not have her big gathering, but I did something where I had a little outdoor space. So I did my saffron fish and I did some rice and teddy. And we did our best to still get together and celebrate. So we'll see what this year brings. I'm hoping we can still get over to MJ's and have a wonderful celebration. What does your family have on Norooz?
Kind of like a variety of all of those dishes, kind of depending on the year. I'm actually really curious to try that smoked rice that you mentioned in our Smoky Persian Flavors episode. So I'm hoping to still get my hands on some of that rice and actually do like a smoked rice with some fish to start it off. And, kuku sabzi is like always just a staple in my house too. So of course I'll probably have kuku sabzi for Norooz or within that time frame as well. And yeah, I'm just excited for everyone to be healthy and hopefully be able to gather and put the pandemic behind us. And really with the Norooz, I'm confident that things will start looking up for everyone and everything. So happy Nowruz, Eid al-Shama Mubarak, happy and healthy season for all of our listeners and for you, Bita Jun.
Happy Norooz. Thank you. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Modern Persian Food Podcast with Bita and Beata. Thanks for spending time with us. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider telling a friend or giving us a good rating. You can subscribe to our show for free on your favorite podcasting app or find us online at modernpersianfood.com or on Instagram for the recipes and information we talked about today. We'd love to hear your thoughts and see you next time.